Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and we have today with us Mr. Sheldon Yakiwchuk. I got it
Nailed
right.
it.
I had to tab out and read it, but at least I got my name right. That's
Well, we
it's
got to start somewhere, right? The
yeah.
names are really unimportant. I mean, as far as things go, right? Yeah, we're a couple of guys that do a little bit of social media stuff. We do a little bit of content sharing. We do a little bit of opening up the conversations, and I think that's what the country needs a lot more of. A lot more voices kind of coming out of the woodwork and voicing, expressing themselves. Whether it's their frustrations, whether it's their support, or whether it's things that we're just generally concerned about as the general masses, right?
No, right. You are. You're the guest. The guest is always right. So I agree with you, though. Hey, Kirk, how's it going? Uh,
Hey, Kirk.
Sheldon. Um, I guess to get things started, could you tell us a little about yourself? Like, I don't know, where you grew up, where you live in now, anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm 100% Alberta, born, bred, and raised. Born in Edmonton, spent most of my life in Calgary, and a big part of that is I have raised a family inside of my community, and now raising grandchildren inside of the same community. And a big part about that is seeing what we've seen inside of Calgary, which is where I am right now. The 30 decades that I've been on, or the 3 decades that I've been on my block and raised my kids, through my grandchildren are now grown up, and we don't feel the same about the community. So, a lot of us have kind of come out from, I'm going to say, a political slumber over the last few years, recognizing what's going on and realizing that there's some changes that need to be made. A lot of people, maybe like yourself, who haven't got kids or grandchildren, may not be tuned in. A lot of people with children or grandchildren may be just too busy with everything else that's going on in their lives. Dance practices and parent teacher interviews, soccer games, anything like that, and it kind of keeps them out of these political. You know, what's going on, the happenings that are in the city, whether it's the province or across the country. So I've been forced to pay a lot of attention to what's going on, just by a protective nature, and have decided to actually enter into the political arena. I'd originally thought possibly running for a provincial seat, working with the UCP as a fairly staunch, proud, and unapologetic conservative. Then I realized, there's a lot bigger things that are happening inside of the city of Calgary right now, where I know my existing city councilor is going to be stepping back. I was pretty sure that was going to happen even after he was elected in his last term. And I thought, we need to still have a fiscally responsible person on side of city council after watching the blunders. So right now, I'm spending a lot of time still kind of focusing on the both the province, on federal, on elections across the country. But a big portion of myself is now being dedicated towards running for, the constituency that I've been in for 3 decades, the place that I've raised my family, and that I don't want to slip any further. I'm a really uninteresting person for the most part, so I'm probably just going to leave it there, Payman.
I think you're more than just a little humble. Uh, let's take that from the beginning. You said you've been, or whatever, 3 decades, or you're born in Alberta. What have you seen change in the last three, four? I don't know how old you are. 3, 4, 5 decades.
Well, they're ushering in a lot of policies into place, and whether it's on the city level, the employment level, or whether it goes down into the education level inside of healthcare, there's a lot of changes that we're seeing, and those changes are impacting directly inside of the area. So, like, one of the big concerns inside of my ward, which is Ward 4, Calgary. So look for me on the ballots, guys. Um, is that we've noticed a sharp increase in crime. And I mean, when we seen Trudeau coming in, and we seen um, it was kind of a really unhappy crossover of having Naheed Nenshi as our mayor, having Rachel Notley as our premier, and then Justin Trudeau. So they're all anti-oil, all pushing the climate shenanigans. And they ended up gutting 25% of the downtown core of Calgary, which is still not recovered. So, I mean, with Justin Trudeau's policies, we're still seeing a lot of foreign investment fleeing from the province. And will we ever get back the economy in downtown Calgary, which has made us a world class city? Now, when things started to go bad in the economy, and Rachel Notley's, I think it was her Minister of Employment, or whatever it was, told Albertans, move to BC if you can't find a job here. It was kind of embarrassing, and I mean, we all went through the big crushing blow in 2015, 2016. There was somewhat recovery, but it's been over this last 4 years with the Justin Trudeau spending more than the sum of all governments prior to him, that we've started to see these affordability crises. And you throw in the mass and unsustainable immigration, and now we have a housing crisis. And with kids that are in their late 20s, early 30s, again raising families, rental situations, because affordability on interests or homes right now, given the inflated market by just having a population that didn't grow at an organic pace, has kind of put us all in these troubling situations. But a bigger part of that has been the crime that's entered into my specific community, and I attribute a large portion of that to just the hardship that people are going through, and it's terrible. I mean, we see the tent cities, we see the homeless encampments, we see um, the hobos downtown pushing carts, and things like this trouble me. And I mean, like, I was downtown at a court case a couple of weeks ago, and went out for a couple of beverages afterwards. And while I was walking around downtown, I'd noticed that there was three homeless people, and they were pushing around what looked to be, and I'm guessing it's probably between a $500 and $600 baby stroller, with all of their bottles and whatever they collect, whatever's a part of their livelihood. And to me, I find that a little bit troubling, because inside of my own community, the crime has reached out through help of the LRT, so that I've actually had a baby stroller stolen out of the back of my own personal vehicle. And you think, like, who comes up somebody's driveway, breaks into their vehicle, and steals a baby stroller? And then when you see the answer walking around downtown, it gets a lot more troubling. But it's more than just that, Payment. So I myself have been witness to, I'm going to say, 4 robberies, where I'd watch people walk in and walk out with armloads full of goods. My youngest son, who's former Canadian Forces, he was actually not involved in, but he was inside of a store when it was held up at gunpoint. There was a sexual assault outside of my oldest boy's condo unit, where he lives with his 2 elementary school age children. So we see these things going on, and we notice our neighbors are doing the same things that we are. They set an alarm clock on their, or an alarm for each evening, to make sure that they go out and hit the automatic lock button on their vehicles, just to make sure that they're locked up, so that they're not getting robbed. So you see them going and checking make sure that their garage door is locked at this point. I mean, we're in fall, so our neighbors are all out. We have 50 to 70 foot poplars and trees. So, I mean, our neighbors are out, kind of diligently keeping their yards clean and that sort of thing. So when they're in and out of their garages, you notice they're being a lot more diligent in what they're leaving out, because they don't want to lose it, and, making sure that they lock up behind themselves, locking up the vehicles. We've seen, the cars being broken into, the catalytic converters being stolen right off of the block. I mean, the crime that's kind of gone on has been a big impact inside of our community. We're just uphill from, kind of a strip mall complex. Dalhousie Station is what it's called. And, there was a point in time between there and just across, one of the main intersections on Crowchild, where, you expected to see most of the buildings, glass front strip malls with plywood, boarding them up, just because they'd been robbed so much. And I'd seen something about that even in BC, where they're starting to install bulletproof glass in some of the storefronts. I'd seen a story about that today. So, I mean, we're all sort of seeing the same things, but then, it extends past that. And when you look at, let's go into an employment situation. So, you have, children that you're raising. So you want your children to get a good job, and then they're going up and they're facing DEI policies where, I have a mixed race family. My wife is black. My kids, if you looked at them, you'd never know it. They had curlier hair when they were growing up. My oldest boy had cornrows, but you look at them and they're white like me. Um, so, I mean, could they identify as being black just so that they could get a better possible job opportunity? It's not something that we encourage. We want to be proud of our heritage. We want to be, proud of our family. And we don't want to merit based on the color of our skin, the languages that we speak, or any of the such. And then when we see, employment opportunities that, our tax money is sponsoring for, this, unsustainable immigration that's being flooded in, it's insane. My youngest boy, and I know I'm prattling on here, Payman. I'll give you a chance to talk here shortly. I know it's your show. My youngest boy is working. He'd had his stint with the Canadian military. From there, he went and worked with the railways, and it just wasn't conducive to a lifestyle of raising a family. So he ended up with Alberta wildfires. He spent, this season as being one of the chiefs, one of the fire station chiefs, managing, one of the bases for Alberta wildfires, which is a cool job. We got to go out, check out the base, look at the helicopters and planes and stuff. He got that okay, and then coming out of that, because it is seasonal work, it's where do I go from here, Dad? And so he went into heavy machinery operating, and knowing what he's competing for. And again, it's inside of a market that's heavily saturated by people that aren't really great with the same communication skills. English isn't a first language. And inside of these workplaces, I'm going to say that safety is kind of a number one concern. When we're thrusting these policies into play, we want equity, but we don't want equality. Well, if somebody's unsafe on a job site, or if they potentially put themselves or a lot of others at risk, it stops making sense. And then we take that and it down cycles to, where I see my children going to going into my grandchildren going to school, and seeing some of the policies and the ideas that are being pushed through there, the rainbow community, the LGBTQ, the sexual content, sexualization of elementary students at this point. And again, it's pushed through these same ideals, or under the guise of being progressive. Progressive as a term means nothing anymore. I mean, it's the absolute inverse of what progress is. It's taking people, instead of uniting under the same ideals that we grew up with, as everybody is the same, so we treat everybody the same, despite their skin color, despite their heritage, despite the running shoes that they wear. And we're celebrating people not based on their merits, not forcing them to achieve, not encouraging them to achieve, but we're teaching them ideologies which will be of zero benefit for them in the actual progress of their livelihood. So it's kind of all encompassing, Payman, in what I'm seeing inside of my community.
So, I'm trying to figure out how we got to here. You just described how our leaders destroyed the economy. We got tent cities, we got rampant crime, and now we got this DEI, I don't know, infection virus. How is it that people continue to vote Liberal or NDP in these urban settings?
I don't think people are as tuned in. I mean, when we look at what's being broadcast through legacy media, and when we're on the social media platforms, we see a lot more than that. Than I'm going to say the average person does. A big portion of it is they'll broadcast one thing in the headlines, but then the body of the story is not exactly what's being portrayed, or it's being portrayed with a definitely anti-right, pro-left slant to it. So, I mean, if we look at even the headline news right now, we're looking at, inside of the House of Commons, everybody's talking about Pierre Poilievre not getting his NDA or his security clearance, despite the fact that as an MP and having been an MP for several terms now, he's had to have security clearance. He's already got security clearance, but there's this special security clearance that forces him to sign an NDA in order for him to find out who the corrupted individuals, the potential compromised members of parliament are, that are active in the House right now. So that's the big story right now. Meanwhile, this information could be declassified and released to the public so that we can actually have proper democracy. Or, take into account that the Speaker of the House, who's a liberal speaker, has shut down all new business inside of the House of Commons, inside of Parliament, because of this slush fund that the Liberals gave to themselves. So they started off with $1 billion, paid themselves out 400 million of that. They're the ones that got to select the staff for payment. They're the ones that, it wasn't an open bidding project. They actually went out and selected the business. But then they also selected the companies that they own to do the vetting behind these businesses. So they've basically paid themselves to the tune of $400 million, so much that the Speaker of the House has shut down Parliament. I mean, this isn't prorogued Parliament. There's no new business that's allowed on right now, but everybody's focusing on, Pierre Poilievre, the official opposition leader, not signing an NDA. It's the most insane thing. So when you look at the headlines, it's all about Pierre Poilievre. It's not a lot about, we've shut down. There's nothing going on in Parliament right now. And I mean, what does that mean to the Canadian public? So when you take these broad news headlines and you feed it into people where they're in an affordability crisis, and I know this, saying this from my children's perspective is, of course they're younger, they're not going to pay as much attention to news, but even if they wanted to, they don't have the fucking time to. When they're struggling to make ends meet, struggling to make sure that they can, be out a couple nights a week and bargain shopping for groceries, making sure that they can kind of keep up with their children, the homework, and the other activities. What more are they actually going to see inside of the political realm other than, what they're seeing by headlines? And if everything is slanted to one side in favor of a left leaning, in our province, there's not a lot of liberal representation on the provincial side. So we'll go with the NDP. So, when you see it slanting towards or in favor of the NDP, they look at these guys as being like, well, yeah, what they're saying makes more sense. And right now we have, blowhard, double the city taxes, closed down 25% of the downtown core, introduced the safe injection sites. Former mayor of Calgary, Naheed Nenshi, as the party leader for the NDP. He's not an elected member of legislature. He can't even sit in legislature with them. He's got to be in the arena. I can go there tomorrow and I have as much say in legislature as he does. And I'd be saying it from the exact same point, only opposite of where he'd be sitting. So when they show the favoritism towards that, it's bias. And, people know the name Naheed Nenshi, but they don't remember a lot of the scandals, and they're too busy to kind of keep up with what's going on in politics. So how does it happen? I'm not going to say it's people are lazy, people are uninformed. It's just that they just don't have the time, the patience, and they're hamsters on a wheel right now. They're running so far to try and maintain their livelihoods that who has time to sit down and do some serious drilling into, what does the opposition party look like? What does the current party, what does the governing party look like? Who's, so I mean, we have to wait for these huge slaps in the face to actually reach us before people can pay attention. And inside of Calgary right now, and this is specifically to Calgary Council, is that, for over the last decade, 25% of the water that's being fed to the city has been lost through leaky pipes that us as taxpayers, us as homeowners, are paying for. Well, throughout the summer, the hottest peaks of the summer, we had to shut our outside water off, which means I couldn't have the grandchildren over to running around in the sprinklers. They couldn't hop on the trampoline with the sprinklers, couldn't fill up the pools. I couldn't wash off my driveway. I mean, there are some petty things that are inside of that, but this is what we fucking pay for. The city collects around $1 billion per year for maintaining the pipes inside of the city of Calgary. $1 billion per year. This has been going on for over a decade. It's come to a point where it turned into a catastrophe. We had to shut off our outside water and then restrict our water. They told us to not flush if we only urinated in the toilet. Go fuck yourself. How about that? How about that, guys? Because when the stampede was on, and the city flooded with people, which we're happy for. I mean, we want the tourism. I mean, and the stampede is an excellent celebration of our pride inside of our city. We definitely want that. But, when we were told to restrict the amount of toilet flushing that we could do and to try and minimize our showers to 3 minutes, regulate how often we were doing our laundry, despite the fact the city's making $1 billion a year, ignoring their job. That's the kind of thing that reaches out to people where they stop looking at headlines and start asking for heads on platters. My thoughts.
Why do you think that's happening where the cities are falling apart? Is it neglect of infrastructure? Is this just what eventually happens as cities hit a critical size? Or is it fraud? What do you think it is?
I'm going to go with, and we've seen this inside of, and I'm not sure about, well, I mean, we even seen it in the most recent election inside of British Columbia, where the unions came out in masses in support of the BC NDP. We know that they're left-leaning. We know that the Labour Party, NDP, is the party of the working class, is what they call it, but it's not the party of the working class or the working people. It's the party of the unions. NDP supports the unions. The unions feed money to the NDP. The same thing happens inside of both of our municipal elections. So in Edmonton and Calgary are, our two big cities inside of the province. Both of these cities had union funds sponsoring campaigns of the candidates that they'd selected. Now, why would they do that? Well, if you take, the civil unions, the people that work for the city, be them garbage pickers or Parks and Rec, the roads crews, whatever they are, building and maintenance. So you take their unions, of course they're going to want to select who their boss is. So what happened, and this is specific to Calgary, is that one of these labor organizations, a guy that worked for them, he opened a TPA, a third party advertiser, which is allowed in the political circles. So they can promote a message. And there's several of these things, but he's gotten 6 substantial donations for the last municipal election, all from 3 unions that paid $1.7 million that he could use to help him select the candidates they want on city council. So inside of the city of Calgary, there are 14 wards. You take $1.7 million, 14 wards plus the mayor. That means that there's $100,000 of campaign funds that can go to each one of the people that they selected who's going to be friendly to their policies. Again, they want to pick their bosses. So they went through, they vetted their candidates, told them that they would sponsor their ride, and got them elected into the city. But all they wanted was a few things in return. When they called, they'd get what they wanted. So we've seen a lot of these policies being thrust on us by people that weren't elected necessarily to the city. They were selected. Now, in going through, and I know you're going through some of this because you're involved in the political realm as well, right, Payman? You're one of the PPC candidates on a federal level, correct?
Correct.
So you know what it's like to go out and have to, door knock. And I mean, the first thing that you have to do is, if you're going to go through a nomination process, which we didn't have to do on the municipal side of things in the last election, we will on the future one. But you're trying to sign people up to the party. So you sign people up to the party for the, $10, whatever the membership is. But on top of, them being a member of the party so that they can actually vote for you, is you need funds to roll with. And raising yourself, if you had to go out, and I'm not going to ask you your totals, if you had to go out and raise $100,000 for your political campaign tomorrow, how would you do it? I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it? But the people that we have selected in Edmonton and Calgary as our mayor and the predominant force that's backing city council, they didn't have to work for it. They had a large sum of cash fall into their lap because they could say the right words, do the right things, held the right point of view, got the union cash, got a $130,000 a year paycheck, are going to get some excellent benefits and pensions out of the deal, and all they had to do was show up. Try and campaign against that. Now, the same thing happens on the provincial side of things. So the provincial side of things, though the numbers haven't been officially released, is that in the last provincial election, where we'd seen Premier Smith become the premier of the province through election, is that the unions funded a 10-month-long fear and smear campaign. So it was very pro-NDP, very anti-UCP, but it basically started in November. Now, I'm a Christmas music kind of guy, and there's like one station in Calgary that plays the Christmas music for the entire season. But the NDP ads were so latent on that, I had to go through the entire season and just not listen to it because I couldn't even listen to it. And it wasn't just them. It was every radio station. It was every app. It was YouTube channels. Like even the weather app. You go onto the weather app and you get these pro NDP messages. 10 months long, about $10 million, so $1 million per month that they used to flip 13 seats to NDP. And all of that was sponsored by, again, the labor unions that want to select the provincial government. So they want to own the city. They want to own the city council members. They want to own the province so that they can get more money. And we see through what's recently been passed in federal legislation is the anti-scab laws that were, of course, introduced by, it was Shameless O'Regan, wasn't it? I think that brought up the anti-scab laws. And basically what that means is up until this point, if you wanted to work in a union shop, you could and didn't have to be a part of the union. The drawback of that is you still had to pay your union dues. So you pay your $100 a month or $200 a month, whatever that looks like, percentage of your salary. And it varies between the different labor unions. So you just want to go out and do your job. You give them the $100, say, whatever, just leave me alone. I'm not going to any union meetings. Don't give me any of your bullshit literature, anything like that. And you continue to work your way. I mean, it's an extra tax that's coming out of your pocket for working for a shop, but union shops are typically a little bit better paid than what you'd find in the same position in other places. You can still do that today. The problem is with the anti-scab legislation, is if the union decides to go on strike, whether you're a union member or not, nobody can cross the picket line. They shut them down completely. So you just want to go out, do your job, work your 9 to 5, work your 40 hours a week, 44, whatever it is right now, come home to your family and, again, deal with your yard, your maintenance, your kids, everything that's going on inside of your life. The union decides to go on strike. You can't go to work. Nobody's getting a paycheck. And you're screwed. This is federal legislation that's been passed over this year that's basically permitted that or prohibited people from working. So we need right to work policies, and we need policies that can actually have a look into where the unions spend their money. Right now, on a more federal level, we'd seen that just the most egregious prick on the planet, that Fred Hann, who's, I believe, the CUPE president. And I mean, they've been involved in the Palestine, Gaza, Israel conflict from the get-go. And he's one of the, queers for Gaza or Palestine, whatever it is, right? He's one of the chickens that supports KFC is what he is. Not realizing that, potentially his head is next on the platter. You can only appease the alligator until they run out of people to, and before you realize you're next. Anyways, he's been so egregious in what he's been standing up and saying that they actually want to break into the finances. The Jewish members that are Jewish CUPE members want to crack open. They want to audit the books to see how much union dues are actually going towards funding a war that is of zero concern to Canada and Canadians, but that actually goes against their specific religions or their personal beliefs. That's looking for their genocide. I mean, if I was working, somebody's taking $100 out of my pocket per month, and then they're using that money to fund campaigns that say that's the guy you want to kill, I'd be pretty fucking offended too. So they're trying to crack open the books, but Fred Hand thumbs his nose at the entire deal. He knows that they don't have to. There's no way that they can compel him. The unions have asked for him to step down. He's told them to go fuck themselves too. So he's running like a tyrant, just like Justin Trudeau, who is above the laws. He's above the regulations and doesn't feel like he has to answer to anybody. And that's what we're seeing. And I mean, when these people can take that kind of cash, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to fund political rivalries, it completely destroys the idea of democracy that we have inside of this country. We're going through this foreign interference crap right now, and there's 11 people supposedly that CSIS is named. Sam Cooper believes that there's about 50 of these people. In the 11 that potentially were named, there was supposedly one conservative name. Cooper released that in his presser with Kevin
Wong.
Wong on, what was it, Monday? Yeah, Monday. And for one thing, the guy is no longer an active member of government. He was a conservative senator, but he was also selected by the former governor general, who was also the special rapporteur that Trudeau hired. Trudeau hired the guy because he knew he couldn't name the names because he'd be implicated in part of the whole foreign investigation thing. But we're worried about, the potential of 11 or maybe, let's say it is 50 of 338 members of parliament that are conflicted. And that's terrible. That's foreign interference. What we're seeing on the domestic side of things right now with the involvements from the unions, they've gotten so powerful. They're funding campaigns just to select the government that they want so that when they go back to the negotiation tables, they can get more perks, they can get better paychecks, they can see more managers hired, which we'd seen the Notley government do with Alberta Health Services, which is still a situation that we have to deal with right now. Healthcare is fucking collapsing. We've got more management and administration to create bloat inside of the system than the system can actually handle. It's choking itself out based on these things. And just in looking at that, and these are anecdotal stories, and these are coming from, I'm going to say from, fairly okay sources, is that we have management that's working for our healthcare system while our healthcare system is collapsing. People are dying. In 2021, the number one leading cause of death inside of the province of Alberta was ill-defined or unknown. That's how fucking terrible we're doing. The average life expectancy is on a downward slope, has been since COVID started, isn't improving from there. But word on the street is because these union managers were allowed to work remotely, a lot of them left the country, or some of them left the country. They were also selected as managers to manage departments that have no other people. So they're managers by paycheck and by title alone, that don't have to check into the office, haven't been in there in years, and are working remotely from tropical destinations. And this is what our tax money is paying for. What benefits are we seeing from these things? But who selects these people? They do. They're a part of the same unions that are picking, that are picking the government. The governments are picking them, promoting them, And it's this cycle of corruption that we're never going to escape from. We saying everyone is delusional about the healthcare system when over 40% of Canadians don't even have a doctor. No, and that's absolutely correct. And probably one of the most beneficial things as far as health is concerned is that 40% of the population doesn't have a doctor right now. I'm just going to go out and say that. I had a long talk with a couple of doctors and professors from the University of British Columbia. It's on my Twitter feed. It's also in my Substack. I published the entire thing today. Professors from the University of British Columbia, and they're also certified doctors that went through and broke down a lot of what we'd kind of seen throughout the COVID sham period. And none of it was, it was ever supported. And so when you look at people like Bonnie Henry that you had in British Columbia, and we look at Dr. Dina Hinshaw that we had inside of the province, and we see all of these things that these people did, there was never any logic that supported it. Like, follow this arrow on the floor, or you're going to die from a virus that only impacts people with 4 comorbidities that you don't have. Stay home, work in front of your computer, cut off your exercise, order skip the dishes, and have your first glass of wine by 11 o'clock because nobody's really paying attention. Nobody can smell your breath on a fucking Zoom call. Like, it's like what we did. And these people did this to us. No, you can't go to the gym and work out despite the fact that you're not getting any movement. So is a bit of a collapse inside of the healthcare system needed? It is, but not in the way that we're seeing right now. If people are forced to have to do a little bit of research on their own core symptoms, you sit around and you eat pizza all day, every day. You get fat, you start feeling really gross. At some point in your life, you're going to stop and think, is it the pizza that's doing this to me? And then you're going to start to maybe do a little bit of research on the Google, right? Whereas if you go to your doctor and he's just going to give you Ozempic or
prescribe you something, yeah,
prescribe you something. So there is a certain benefit that people will achieve by not going to doctors, and I will stand firmly on that soapbox, but we need to do it in a way that's not gonna harm people. And the people that are being harmed are the same people that have always been the highest risk. The same people, for the reasons that they still have the same 4+ comorbidities that put them at higher risk from COVID. We're not treating their disease. We're band-aiding it. When I wrote my book last year, Payman, and it was on chicken soup, and I rationalized this. Have you ever heard if you can write a book about chicken soup, you can write a book about anything?
I know chicken noodle soup for the soul.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. So anyways, I broke down and I wanted to write a book. So I made it about chicken soup because I thought, going into respiratory virus season, the book would be more beneficial than people lining up for another jab. And I also did it so that I could raise some proceeds for the Veterans Food Bank. But the idea of chicken soup as a treatment for respiratory virus goes back to the father of Western medicine, Hippocrates. So it goes back, to 600 BC, like a long time ago. And that was actually the first remedy was chicken soup. So I was able to kind of break these things down and kind of talk about the benefits that you can get from either having a hearty bowl of chicken soup or just having the broth and the benefits that you're getting from the micronutrients and from just the electrolytes that it's being able to provide. So, I mean, there's a lot of health benefits that, somebody can do by individual research that can do benefit to their body. And that is, according to the father of Western medicine, Hippocrates, you're basically eating your way into sickness or you're eating your way to health. So let food be thy medicine was one of the phrases that's attributed to Hippocrates. And that's kind of what we're looking at. We don't have doctors that are focused on core symptoms, core issues. We have doctors that can recognize symptomology and prescribe a bigger Band-Aid. When I was writing my book, one of the most troubling facts that I'd found out, and this is kind of why I brought it up, is that people over the age of, I believe it was 65, I'd have to go back and check it out, is that they're on 10 or more prescription drugs. 10 or more. 1/3 of the population, after maybe it was 75, 1/3 of the population by the time they hit 75 years old, they're on 10 or more prescription drugs. How many prescription drugs are you on? Don't answer that. It doesn't matter. But
None.
if you're not disgusted by somebody having to take 10 medications and then them still being at the highest risk factor because these things aren't actually curing root causes of their diseases, you have to think, what value can we see inside of the healthcare system that we see right now? And I don't find the value that we're, for the money that we put into it, I don't find we're getting the value out of it.
I think the healthcare system is useless. Like, unless I'm having like massive chest pains, I don't go to the doctor. There's just no point. They don't do anything.
Well, yeah, if you've lopped off a limb or been attacked by a rabid dog and you've got an actual flesh wound, no, for sure. And I'm not trying to coax people out of going to see their doctor. I mean, there are some really great doctors out there, but the healthcare system in itself doesn't really promote that ideology. So yeah, your physical conditions, you sprain an ankle, you break a bone, again, you uh, cut off a limb, you get a huge gash, you need stitches. I mean, don't try stitch yourself up at home. Don't do that. Your first aid course was not good enough for you to be doing that kind of shit at home. Go to a doctor. Go to emergency for the legitimate stuff. But when we see the breakdown, and I believe you guys are in some of the same situations where, as Perry had mentioned, 40% of the population of Canada doesn't have a doctor. So when they do get the coughs, colds, sniffles, flus, they line up at the emergency rooms. And because of the situation inside of British Columbia right now, they're closing the emergency rooms down. These people are fucked. I mean, they're lining up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get into an emergency appointment. And I learned that from the doctors that I talked to, from British Columbia yesterday. You're lining up at emergency at like 7 o'clock in the morning, or trying to get into a doctor's appointment. And a lot of these people that are lined up first thing in the morning never get to see a doctor. So they end up at the emergency, and the emergency rooms are closing because they don't have staff to keep them open. I mean, there's a lot that kind of goes into that, but we know the system's broken. And everything's kind of feeding on to this inferno, this ash heap that we're seeing created by the Liberal government right now. It's mind-blowing, man.
I think the silver lining, I'm noticing a lot of leftist liberal moms, they're starting to get really worried because they can't take their kids into like an emergency room. They can't get them to doctors. And they're kind of like, they're stuck in this does not compute situation where they would never vote conservative because that's suicide. But then their kids are dying. So they're like, what do I do? At some point, they're going to have to switch sides and vote for the conservatives.
Yeah, and I'd seen it was actually Shane Wenzel had posted a TikTok video. I don't do TikTok much, but when Shane posts something, I usually watch. I mean, Shane's a great guy. He's one of the home builders. Shane Homes inside of Calgary. We've got a Cal Wenzel addition, his father, onto one of our hospitals. I mean, they're very generous people. Shane's a great guy. So he posted this TikTok thing, and the TikTok video was "The Left Left Me." And it's this guy, and he's saying this is why we're not voting for the left anymore. He goes, the ideas are great, but this started in COVID, where they wanted to force these injections on us, and being a health conscious person, I didn't want to go through with that. So, I stayed away from that. And he said, and then these people just got perpetually worse. And he goes, and it's gotten so bad that it's just this victim complex. Where they're, and I'm going to paraphrase here. This is actually, what I've said about a lot of people is they're not happy unless they have something to be unhappy about. And that's exactly the point that he was making. A young guy, I'm getting married, I'm having a baby, or he is married, a beautiful wife, has a couple of businesses, having a baby. And instead of focusing on being a victim, he started working out that, if he just focused on being a better person and focusing on, where his goals and achievements could be, he didn't have to play victim anymore, and his life just got a whole lot better from that. So not unlike what you're saying, where it's, moms, but it's actually, what was it, in the 18 to 35-year-old group, which is predominantly the largest liberal supporting group, we've seen that, those people have kind of jumped off the cliff and they no longer support the leftist ideology. It's swung too far past. It's done too much damage to them, their lifestyles, and what they perceive as their up and coming future for them to continue to vote on the liberal scale.
It's like that meme that guy sitting at the table, the house is on fire. He's like, "This is fine."
Yeah,
That's what's
I'm
going
good.
on.
I'm
Yeah.
good. And I think people have been forced to sit into that long enough um, until they actually get it. And there was a commercial that was out. I would say maybe like 10 years ago, and they say crime doesn't affect me because I lock my doors, I put up security cameras, I added an extra deadbolt. I take all these measures, so crime doesn't affect me. Well, you've changed your entire lifestyle. You no longer feel safe, but you're saying crime doesn't affect you. You're not realizing the levels that you've gone through, the impact that it's actually had. It's just one more of those. It's fine.
It
Things, right?
reminds me of a story. My buddy, um, I grew up with him. He's a great guy, but he's a liberal voter, NDP liberal, and he's got a business downtown. Things have gotten so bad. There's so many homeless people that when he's taking out the trash, they're like harassing him in the alleyway. So he bought this asp. I don't know if you know what an asp is, that retractable baton the cops use, which is
Yep.
illegal. So he's committing a crime to defend his own life against these homeless people that the liberal policies have created, and yet I'm pretty sure he's going to vote liberal.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, you guys just went through your provincial election, and I mean, we didn't have all the information on everything, but there was a chance that you guys were going to flip to conservative, and it was, there was the Liberal Party, which completely folded. People were no longer going to vote Liberal, just saying, I don't know. You're going to have to tell me about why the big shift away from Liberals inside of BC, because I'm only guessing it's because of the damage that the Federals have done under Justin Trudeau. But are they not realizing that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are a part of that and just elected them as the provincial party? Like, what the fuck happened there, man?
So I have a bit of a negative view of what happened there. I think the Liberal Party, it's called BC United, but the Liberal Party didn't really disappear. It just was a case of osmosis where it just floated towards the BC Conservative Party. So it's
Yeah, they
kind of
just
like a
flipped.
rebranding. Yeah, it was just a rebranding, right? It's like if you shut down Coca-Cola and you took the flavor to Pepsi and all the staff. That's what I
Yeah.
feel has happened. But as for people voting for the NDP, I don't know, man. Like, I have no evidence to prove that there was massive fraud. A lot of people are saying it wasn't close. It was, they rigged the system. I just, I don't understand how you can go through the last 4 years, how you can't get a doctor and you still vote 51+% or whatever, 40, give them 47 seats. I cannot comprehend that.
Well, and I mean, it's not just that for you. I mean, you guys have the highest overdose rate because of the legalization of narcotics. You have where they're permitting, drug users to be in playgrounds, parks, and school zones. Um, the legalization, we'd seen the video of that hospital. What was it in Kelowna that has a vending machine for drug paraphernalia right outside? So when everybody looks around at this, they see these people downtown. They see these overdoses. You're stepping over dead people to go buy your groceries. I mean, that in itself should say, all right, whoever decided that this was a good idea, maybe we shouldn't vote for them. Then when you see healthcare, then when you see affordability, then when you guys are double hammered on the carbon tax, where you don't get like fucking 10 cents back. You guys are not included in the 8 out of 10 that the liberals still try to lie about that get back. Because you guys don't get fucking nothing, do you? You guys don't get a carbon rebate.
There's a lot in there. So you have to, it's a good point, but you have to look at the demographics of the urban centers versus the suburban centers. The urban centers, they're all young people. Young people want to go out, have a good time, pick up a girl. That's not really, they're not voting conservative. They're believing whatever the media says. And if there's a problem, if there's a dead body on the street because of a drug overdose, that's because of a management issue, not an ideology issue. So you got to vote in another liberal person that can manage that better, but you would never vote in conservative. Needles in a playground, that's more of a suburban area. Nobody downtown has kids; they have dogs, so they don't care about those things. But these people in the suburbs, it's because I'm in politics. I'm starting to realize that it doesn't really matter what you say; it's how you say it. So if you have two options, you have one guy on your left that's saying, we should have needles in schools for kids and teach them, how to have sex at age 5 or whatever. and you have another person here saying this is radical gender ideology, it's evil, they're going to be like, this guy over here sounds really mean. I'm going to go with this other guy that was really, polite when he said we should have needles and we should love each other. It's a psychological issue. I see it happening to parents that are lawyers and doctors, and it's almost like we have to treat it like a military incursion, and got to do some sort of psychological operation.
Well, and they do use these teddy bear terms to introduce these policies, and then they defend them rigorously, like rabid animals, right? So they got the soji into schools by throwing these teddy bear terms around them. We got the tranny storytime hour in front of children and at the public libraries.
Can I stop you there? I just want to say something.
Man.
You just used the phrase tranny storytime hour. If you have a 50-year-old guy in underwear dancing with your 6-year-old kid, and then you got Sheldon over here saying tranny story hour, they'd rather go with that guy than you because you used a mean word.
So it's the word. Yeah. No, and I'm fine with that. I think a lot of people appreciate me because I will use that word. And a lot of other profanity that kind of goes to what people are actually feeling, the anger, the animosity that people have, the rage. And I said, I'm unapologetic, but I am going to take some of your words because I have been tried. I have people that are trying to coach me into these things because I am the least politically correct person that's probably going to be running for politics inside of the city in this next election. I've got people that can help me along with this thing. And they keep saying, fuck, man, don't say that. It's like,
I'm telling you, man, you got to color your hair pink, drape yourself in the trans flag. And then once you get in, and then you can go hardcore MAGA.
Well, no, and I do appreciate that. I mean, I've been in sales for a good portion of my life. So, I mean, it's not what you say, it's how you say it to some people. And that's going to be what they have to get. I was out for lunch with a couple of friends, and one of the guys asked the waitress which way she tended, and she indicated NDP, and he said, "Well, is it not economic, or is it like the more social side of things?" And she said, "No, it's absolutely social." And then the rest of her story was, well, she lives at home with her parents, and she's going to school, but her dad's tending more towards that, and it's. You could just tell the way she was going on that her dad is not supportive of that, but he's her dad. So, okay, stay in the house, go to work. Yeah, I'll agree with you. I just don't want to be a part of this conversation. That's more of what I'd actually gotten on the high level, but it still turns us into one of those places where, when we go into these conservative groups, these conservative meetings, there's guys like me and older. And one of the big concerns for us is when we're tired of this shit. We finally hit the end of our roads on the political side of things, is we don't have a succession group. The lefties typically
screw these cryberry, these snowflakes.
I'm with you, Prairie. We don't have a succession program. We don't have youth that are being engaged inside of politicals on a conservative side to the same way that the left can do it. I mean, that's why Soji's in school. Like, it's part of the youth training program. We're going to start at an elementary level and start shaping their minds towards the leftist ideology. So when they get to 18 and you tell them, no, you're not allowed to do that, or when somebody screams about their rights, well, what fucking rights have you lost? You've lost nothing. Calm down. Stop spitting and think about what you're saying. But it's, they pick on Polyev for slogans, and I'd say the same thing. Like, the slogans are fuck, are they getting old? Like, it's tough to listen to political, like in the House, we're going to build the homes, we're going to axe the tax, we're going to fuck all it, like, it makes me crazy just hearing the same slogans all the time. Pick some new slogans, or, kind of get on something. But I mean, I understand that it's effective. But the left does the same thing, but they're maybe not so much in the slogans as they are in the protect my rights. And, even the liberals today in the House, that's what all they were talking about is a conversation that hasn't had to happen in 50 years about abortion. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody's trying to change anything. So why do we have to have this conversation? Is because they can't get support on any of the other issues that they're trying to bring forward. So it always goes down to, well, the other guy's trying to take away your rights. And it's like you said, it's what how they're saying it. Well, they're being mean to us. You don't want your rights restricted, do you?
Yeah,
And then
that's
they
it's
forget about the
frustrating.
4 years that they just lived through.
No, my favorite one is so like my body, my choice. That's sort of like the
The
mantra,
slogan.
the slogan of
Yeah.
the feminist movement, right? And I remember I was having an argument with a feminist about vaccines. I'm like, whatever happened to my body, my choice? All she could keep saying is you're an anti-vaxxer. I'm like, I don't give a shit. You want to take 100 vaccines a day? Go for it. But
Yeah.
it's like it's just a slogan. It doesn't mean what it sounds like it says. It's a very narrow description of my body, my choice. It's not full property rights and security of the person.
No, it's very specific. It's very keyed in. But they use it. They use it as a shield and a sword. And depending on what context they're in, are we going to use this as a shield, or are we going to use it as the sword? Right? Are we going to use this to defend our position, or are we going to use this to attack the other guy? And they're very very powerful at that. And I agree with that. And I look at, again, Naheed Nenshi, the leader of the NDP provincial party inside of the city here. He's the one that introduced the drug dens, the safe injection sites into Calgary. And then he was shocked. He was shocked about the rampant increase in crime in the neighborhood. Well, we're trying to get rid of those things now, but a big part of when Nenshi was running for leader of the NDP party is one of the terms that they throw around is we've got to get rid of toxic drug supply. We've got
Is
to
there a
get rid of
non-toxic drug supply that I'm not aware of?
well, and that's what they call safe supply. If we have
Uh,
safe supply, then we can get these toxic drugs off the street.
well, yeah,
But
but
you
I mean,
see,
like sorry, you and
the
I could do an entire episode on this, like maid, medical assistance in dying. Um, safe supply is another one. You're right. Like these euphemisms that they use, they absolutely do not mean what people think they mean. Yeah.
no, and Trudeau was famous for that. What did he call it? Unshackling the science, or unshackling the scientists, right? That was his terminology. And what has unshackling the scientists meant? It means that they could usher in their carbon bullshit, and that's all it's been. His idea of unshackling the sciences was bringing forth climate change and everything that's followed, green energy and the carbon tax and everything else that's followed, because he supports the scientists, right? You ask him what the science is, he can't tell you because there is no science that fundamentally backs any of this shit. But they use, the narratives that they choose. The anti hate law, or the what is it called, the legislation they're going to try and regulate the internet with. Uh,
63.
yeah, it's Bill 63, but it's the anti hate blah blah blah.
I think it's
Well,
called the Online Hate Act.
yeah, the online. You know what? I probably have a tab open out of 187 others that I have here. Yeah, our commons. No, that's Kevin Vaughn there. 338. No, I'll find it. Yeah, it's the anti-hate legislation. Anyways, yeah, so they're doing the same thing with this. Is they're putting, all these bits and pieces of legislation together that you can't disagree with. Online Harms Act. Thanks, Perry. They're putting all these little bits and pieces of information in there so you can't object to this. Oh, you don't want to protect children. No, we want to protect children. Oh, well, then how can you vote this bill down? Well, because you're trying to tell me that I'm being hateful, and you get to decide what hate is. We see the anti-hate group on Twitter, and they're this group, but all they're anti-hate about is the right wing, alt right wing conspiracists, and they're trying to shut down that, and they're getting was it $350,000 from the federal government to call themselves the anti-hate group, and all it is a pro-liberal, anti-conservative group that turns everything into hate. You can't say something without being called a racist or a misogynist or a xenophobe. Oh, you're a homophobe. No, I'm really not. I just don't think dudes belong in bathrooms with chicks, and stay the fuck out of there when my granddaughter's going in there, or we're gonna have a lot longer conversation. But it's all the things, and I mean, people are afraid of being called a name. Well, you know what? Put on your big girl panties, walk out of the house, and if you see something that's going wrong, don't be afraid of somebody being calling you a name. Be more offended by what you're actually seeing than what somebody's going to call you. I think that's where Canadians need to, you know, stop being so nice all the time.
I've come to the conclusion that Canadians being nice is a big part of what's going on, and that ties into multiculturalism as well and immigration.
Yeah, Canada, as you see it, are we a melting pot or are we a mosaic?
I'd say we're a salad bowl.
Yeah, that's kind of it. When I was growing up, we were called a melting pot, and then in less than 10 years, we'd turned into a mosaic. And a mosaic's always actually made more sense. We have independent communities inside of their own separate things. We've always had Chinatown. I don't think there's a metropolis or a city inside of Canada that doesn't have Chinatown, right? Chinatown is effectively it's a mosaic. Has anybody really been offended by Chinatown? No, Little Italy. There are places where there are core groups of people that kind of get along, and I think that those are fine. But for the most part, we are kind of a salad bowl. We're kind of mixed and matched together, and as long as we can kind of all choose to get along, like nobody gives a shit about all these things that they're fucking raging about all the time. You want to paint your hair blue, paint it blue, but don't think that you're gonna, necessarily get a job. Well, you treated me mean. Well, because you're fucking scaring me. You've got a bone hanging out of your nose. You're wearing more metal than my car. You're painted unnatural colors, and you're talking crazy. You look like a hobo. I'm not being mean to you. I'm being defensive. I recognize this as being something that's not healthy as an environment. And I've said this, they say, well, there's certain demographics of people that are being targeted by the police. And I say the same thing. If you don't want to be treated like a thug by the police, don't fucking dress and act like a thug in front of the police. It's pretty simple. They say, oh, that's your white privilege that says that. Well, no, because I could do the same thing. I could I could have as many neck tattoos as I want. I could pierce a bunch of orifices and like fucking I
Get
could wear
tattoos all over
clothes
your
that
face. Yeah.
yeah, the whole I could do the same thing, and then I would get, despite my white privilege, I would get treated the same. Because I don't do that, it's not white privilege. It's me just not wanting to be a part of that culture. And that's all it is. I'm a grandparent. Yeah, a bone in my nose and a neck tattoo, not broadcasting to my family the message and the morals that I want to bring and leave with them, right? Or the path that I want them to follow in.
So, Sheldon, in wrapping up this episode, I just have one more question. What do you think is the direction the country's going in? We've just had 4 elections: BC, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia's coming up, and you got the AGM for Daniel Smith. What's your Sheldon take on these events?
Well, Saskatchewan seemed to hold their own under Scott Moe, and I'm glad that they did. He's helped out the province in just the carbon tax alone. I know there are some issues with Scott, and definitely on the side of his background. I'm guessing a lot of these people have some skeletons in their closet, and like Jagmeet, for instance. I've come across some information that, well, everybody knows that he's been a part of the Khalistan thing. There's enough confirmation that he's not allowed into India or the United States because of his association with terrorists. But I mean, does it, like, how far does it go? Scott Moe, I think it was maybe he killed somebody when he was drinking and driving. You do your time, and you reform yourself, you move on. If you're still involved, and that's on the Scott Moe side of thing. I don't know all the history of Scott Moe. Maybe he was a really big jerk when he was in school. Same with like Doug Ford. I think, you got to gauge people on, when they tell you who they are, you should start to believe them. I think there is more of a conservative movement that is coming out. I think the lefties are starting to struggle. I think people are starting to see through this. We have towns inside of Alberta. We have other places that are, no, we're not going to do this rainbow sidewalk crap anymore. It's really not doing anything for anybody. There's no value in it. We see that there's a lot of companies, some of them out of the United States, but some of them in Canada too, that are moving away from the DEI. They're recognizing that if you hire somebody, not based on their ability to work and get along with others, that you're not going to have as productive of a culture for a work environment, and it's probably not going to be as pleasant to your customer base. So I think people are going to start to, I'm not going to say they're going to completely go from left to right. We're not going to see the big swing in the pendulum, but I think that they are going to be hunting for the candidates, somebody that says the right thing, somebody that lives the ideals that they can get behind. And that's, again, inside of my own political side of things, kind of where I see myself. I've lived on the block for 30 years. I shovel the entire block. When it snows, it's big enough for me to pull out my snowblower. I do my entire block. Reason being, I have a lot of foot traffic. We're on a main drag, and that's just because we grew up with these neighbors. They've elderly, weren't able to do the same things, but we have so much foot traffic for the kids and for the commuters that I've just always felt it's been an important thing. So, these are the sort of things that we do inside. I work a lot for charities. I try to project the things that I'd see as positive, and I try and include as many people into these things as possible. And when I see others that are doing the same thing, that we're not going out, and everything's not a riot, it's not a protest. We get together to have a good time. And I see a lot more of the conservative things, and I'm definitely trying to work with these things inside of our province. And I'm doing that with a couple of really good friends with the UCP, and we're starting to get people out, and we're starting to have these conversations. And it's been amazing, on a social media side of things. And the biggest sensation there, the biggest part of this, Payman, is, and I'll say this 1,000 times over, I am fucking nobody. But I get together with a couple of friends, and we invite a whole lot of other people just from online, and they show up. We get together, clink some glasses together, and have a really fucking good time. That means something, man. That really means something. We did an Edmonton event, and it was myself, it was Andy Lee, there was Vitamin D's, Martin Belanger, Marco Van Hugenbos showed up. I shouldn't mention any names because I'm going to forget people, and I hate doing that. Anyways, we also had one of the members of Legislative Assembly, and that was Eric Bouchard, who invited a lot of the UCP MLAs to come out and hang out with us for a beverage. So we had like 200 people in this bar, 18 MLAs, and I was walking around. I was talking to the crew. This is up in Edmonton. We went to Ledge that day and whatever. But I was talking to these people, and I said, like, how many of these things do you come out to? And they say, none. This is the first time I've been out since like the COVID thing has gone on. I heard that answer. I'm going to say like 80% of the times I'd ask the question. People have just gotten so used to being alone, isolated, feeling desperate, feeling like they have no voice. They found this opportunity to just come and hang with some people instead of being online, instead of finding that community online. They hate their neighbors because their neighbors were assholes during COVID, and they didn't want to, whatever it was, right? So we do these things now where it's, don't show up with a $20 bill to come to the event. Show up, pay your bar tab, buy a round, or if not, have a glass of water. If you don't drink, have a cup of coffee, hang out with us. And these things are starting to work. We're starting to get people. Everybody's thinking the same thing. We've just got to get them united. We've got to get them in front of other people to have that same positive influence. Say, we know shit's going wrong. Here's how we can fix things. And I see that happening on the conservative side of things, where I see, liberals in the deep end of the pool with, weights around their ankles. flailing as hard as they can with those like puffy little water wings
Water
on.
wings. Yeah.
Yeah, struggling to survive, right? And that's how I'm going to see things. We've got the AGM coming up this weekend for the UCP. There's going to be, I heard 6,200 people, like over 6,000 Albertans are going to an AGM. Like that is, I believe it's a record for Canada for the amount of people that are going to be showing up to a political event like that. 6,000, over 6,000. The venue itself holds 4,000. They have to have rooms for video. Like if I knew I could like watch this shit on video, I'd have stayed home. Like, why am I going to Red Deer? I mean, Red Deer's cool. I want to meet a bunch of people, but when 6,000 people show up, you may not even be in the main venue seeing these things. So it's like going to a concert and then watching the concert on your fucking phone or whatever it is. It's going to be an exciting time though, man. And there's going to be a lot of great people out there. A lot of people that are going to be able to voice their concerns, but there are a lot of people that are going to be able to show their support for the policies that they want to see. Show their support for the new members of the UCP board that they want to see elected. And I mean, that's a big portion of what I'm going out there for. I'm not going to get anything out of this except a really good time with a lot of great friends, man. And I think that, once we start to look back at this is how we as Canadians are, we're nice people. We love to have a good time, but it's all about community. It's all about family, and it's all about extending that. I think the bigger and faster we can grow this wave, the better Canada is going to be as the closer we are to restoring it to the true north, strong and free.
Sheldon, where can people follow you? And maybe if you could do a plug for your book.
Yeah, my book is #Chicken Soup. All the proceeds still go towards the Veterans Food Bank. It's on Amazon and probably other stuff. It's like $20, and you can buy the electronic copy. I think it's like $4. I haven't really looked at it too much. I don't self promote too much. On Twitter, you can find me at Yakstack, or if you go into Google, you just type in Yakstack, you'll find my Substack as well. So I got about 1,100 articles that I've published and host town halls. And I do things like this just the same way that you are, Payman, because there are so many fantastic people that are out there that really just want an opportunity to chat with somebody and have their voice heard. So, I mean, we got to keep doing what we're doing, right, brother?
Right, you are. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did too. So have a wonderful night.
Hey, thanks for hosting me, man. It was really good. Anytime. We'll do more of these things, right? Promise me.
All right.
Promise me.
I promise. If I'm in Alberta, I'll come out to one of your events.
Sounds great, brother. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody that's tuned in here this evening. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. I hope I didn't talk too much. I know I hoarded the entire conversation away from Payman. I just want to say that if it's not on Payman's, or if it's on one of my live streams, the number one thing is we appreciate everybody that shows up in these things. Comment as much as you want, ask as many questions as you need to, and if you feel like you want to come out and have your own voice, if Payman doesn't have the time, reach out to me. We'll work something out. We want to make sure that your voices get heard, that you're a part of our communities, because you really are. It's that important. Thanks, brother. You have yourself a great evening. Everybody else, have a great night.
Bye.